The room wasn't packed, but it felt like the walls were closing in. Reporters leaned in, pens clenched like weapons. Cameras blinked beneath the heat of the White House lights. Something was off. President Trump stepped to the podium, face tight. Voice clipped. He was already agitated. He skipped the usual opening remarks and went straight for the attack, referring to a radical member of Congress, who, in his words, had encouraged rebellion and lied about his latest executive order. Then he said her name, Jasmine Crockett, should be investigated for sedition, he said. Frankly, she should be jailed. The air left the room. Reporters stared, stunned. One finally stammered, "Mr. President, are you saying you'll involve the DOJ?" Trump cut him off. "We're looking into it. She's dangerous. She's dividing this country when we need unity. People like that, who spread lies, can't just say whatever they want and expect no consequences." Behind him, staffers shifted uncomfortably. Even the White House crew looked rattled. Outside, the video clip went viral instantly. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, it was everywhere. The thumbnail? Trump mid-sentence, a red banner below, threatens to jail Crockett. Inside her district office in Dallas, Jasmine Crockett stood watching silently. Arms folded. Her team had texted her the second it aired. "Play it again," she said. Her expression didn't shift. No pacing. No yelling. But something inside her settled. This wasn't a political jab anymore, it was a warning. A threat, broadcast to the nation. Her aide whispered, "We need to respond." Jasmine nodded. "We will. But not how they expect." Phones lit up. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all demanding a statement. Commentators clashed live on air. Was this an abuse of power? Was Crockett being reckless? By nightfall, her name had been mentioned in over 200 news segments. Political Twitter was on fire. In an Oklahoma City bar, a man watching muttered, "They're gonna lock her up." A woman beside him replied, "No, they're just scared of her." Back in Dallas, Jasmine looked at her aide. "We go live tomorrow. No press filter. Just me, my words." Her aide blinked. Facebook? YouTube? All of it. She turned off the TV and picked up her phone. "Mama," she said. "You saw it?" Her mother's voice trembled. "I did. You okay, baby?" "I'm good," Jasmine said. "But this just became bigger than me." But the part that shocked the country came the next day. 3 days before Trump's outburst, Jasmine had stood before a small courthouse crowd in Fort Worth. No national press. Just local organizers and a few reporters. Her blazer was sharp. Her expression, sharper. "The president's new executive order," she said, "isn't about election security. It's about voter suppression. Plain and simple." She laid it out. The order targeted high Black and Latino turnout areas, shifted polling sites to less accessible zones, and gave sweeping new power to state officials with histories of gerrymandering. Then she read the fine print. One clause stood out. In the event of civic disruption or verified misinformation campaigns, the federal government may suspend or relocate voting stations as needed. She stared at that line for an hour. This means they can move a polling station out of a Black neighborhood just because someone tweeted a lie, she told her chief of staff. She leaked the clause to journalist Ariana Liu from the Dallas Morning News. It ran that night. By morning, civil rights groups were issuing statements. Legal scholars were picking it apart. Still, it hadn't hit the national radar until Jasmine pushed further. She requested a public review of the order's legality and quietly formed a coalition, Representatives Owen Jeffries of Michigan, Lena Serrano of Arizona, and others. They met virtually. The night before Trump's press conference, "We're not getting Senate support," Owen warned. "Not unless something big happens." "Then we make it big," Jasmine said. "Not with noise. With facts." Then she told them what she had. 2 leaked DOJ emails from a whistleblower. One instructed federal attorneys to ensure compliance with the president's agenda in managing polling stations. The other mentioned Jasmine by name, calling her a rising threat to administrative unity. She hadn't released them yet. She was being strategic, but after watching Trump rage on national TV, that changed. That order wasn't written for national security, she would say the next day on live stream. It was written to keep certain people from voting. And these emails prove it. In that moment, America didn't know the full story. All they saw was a congresswoman publicly threatened by a sitting president, but for a growing number, it was clear, the fight wasn't just about politics anymore, it was. Something clicked. People remembered, not bullets or sirens, but the quiet tools of suppression. Gerrymandered maps. Legal loopholes. Voter ID laws. Silenced voices. This felt too familiar. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just fighting back, she was preparing to speak in a way no one expected. She didn't wait for prime time. At 8:08 a.m., she went live from her district office in Dallas. No intro music, no graphics, no slick editing. Just her at a plain desk, phone tilted slightly upward. Navy blouse. Light makeup. Hair tied back. Calm, but unwavering, "Good morning." She began. "I want to speak directly to the people who elected me, and to anyone wondering why the President of the United States just threatened me on national television." Fewer than 1,000 people were watching at first. But within 3 minutes, that number crossed 10,000. By the halfway mark, over 500,000 were tuned in. "I'm not scared," she said, "but I am angry. And you should be too." She leaned forward, her voice measured and steady. "The president said I should be jailed for inciting civil unrest. Let me tell you what I actually did." She pulled out printed pages from the executive order and held them to the camera. Reading aloud, she pointed to the line that gave her pause. A clause allowing federal officials to shut down polling places in disrupted areas, triggered by vague conditions like misinformation or potential unrest. This, she said, tapping the text, means they can shut down a voting site in any black or brown neighborhood if someone posts a fake tweet about a fight. Think about that. She picked up her phone. Shared her screen. 2 emails appeared. One from a DOJ official urging enforcement in favor of executive interest. The other naming her directly. "Representative Crockett is rallying opposition prematurely. She is a disruption to administrative unity." She paused. "This isn't oversight. It's suppression. And it's not about unity. It's about control. No shouting. No dramatic delivery. Just a steady voice telling the truth like someone who already knew the stakes. We're standing at the edge of something dangerous," she said. "And I'm not backing down. I've faced worse than a man yelling on TV." A staffer off camera held up a hand. 15 minutes had passed. But Jasmine wasn't finished. "You said I'm dangerous," she said, speaking to the president directly. "You're right. I'm dangerous to lies. I'm dangerous to silence. And if you're scared of me speaking truth, good. Because I'm not stopping." She tapped the screen. The live stream ended. And just like that, it was out. Within an hour, #StandWithJasmine was trending across social media. Civil rights organizations clipped and reposted her stream. Lawyers weighed in. Students, teachers, and parents shared it with personal messages of thanks and outrage. Her inbox overflowed with offers of support, interview requests, and legal backup, but what made it real were the comments that a man from Ohio wrote. "My grandmother was stopped from voting in 1962. I never thought I'd see this again. I stand with you." A mother in Arizona posted, "Thank you for reading it out loud. I had no idea that clause existed. I'm sharing this with everyone I know." A teen in Minneapolis said, "You made me care about politics today. That's something." Jasmine leaned back in her chair. No cheering. No applause. Just a quiet breath. Her aide looked at her. That was different. Jasmine turned toward her slowly. Now let's see who has the courage to speak next. Someone inside the White House had been watching. And they weren't pleased. In a Boise coffee shop, a barista named Lacey propped her tablet against the espresso machine, streaming Jasmine's speech during the morning rush. By the time the final latte was poured, half the customers had stopped to listen. An older man in a denim jacket asked her to turn up the volume. A student typed rapidly on his phone. A woman with a stroller whispered, "This can't be legal." The stream ended, but no one moved. Then, someone clapped. Soft. Unsure. But it spread, until the whole cafe was quietly applauding. In Santa Fe, a retired teacher forwarded the live stream to former students with a short message, "Histories. Knocking. Pay attention." 20 replies came within the hour, each confirming it had been reshared again online. The hashtag overtook trending lists. Not because influencers pushed it, but because everyday people did. Teachers, grocery clerks, nurses, high schoolers. People who usually stayed out of politics wrote short, powerful captions. "My dad marched in Birmingham. I see the same playbook. Voting shouldn't feel like a gamble. I don't even like politics, but threatening a rep for speaking? Nah. News outlets scrambled to catch up. MSNBC aired clips between weather updates. CNN sent a crew to Dallas by noon. A radio show in Montana broke tradition, opening its broadcast with a story called The Crockett Clash. By late afternoon, something even bigger was happening. In Lansing, Michigan, nearly 200 people gathered outside the state capitol. No party flags. No megaphones. Just handmade signs, "Dissent is not a crime. Protect the polls." Ministers, veterans, high school track. Close to 600 people showed up. They moved slowly, candles flickering against the limestone columns. When a police cruiser crept past and idled nearby, no one flinched. No one scattered. They just kept walking, shoulders squared, candles held. Hi. Jasmine watched the footage from her office, her phone propped against a water bottle. Patrice, her communications director, leaned over her shoulder and whispered, "They're everywhere." Jasmine just nodded, voice low. Let them see each other. And they did. In Eugene, Oregon, a live stream showed handmade banners waving gently in the wind. A drone shot from Shreveport, Louisiana revealed a long ribbon of people winding through the streets, singing "This Little Light of Mine." In Bismarck, North Dakota, where protests rarely drew more than 100, locals stood in a quiet circle outside the courthouse, reading sections of the Voting Rights Act aloud, one voice at a time. Cable hosts argued over whether it was civil unrest or civil defense. One morning show analyst warned that these gatherings could have turned rowdy. But the footage told a different story: families pushing strollers, veterans leaning on canes, college bands playing brass standards. The mood was calm, steady. Not chaos. It felt more like a national exhale. Still, the tension was there, simmering beneath the peace. In Madison, Wisconsin, a counter-protester waved a sign reading, "Lock her up." A man in a red cap yelled at a teenager live streaming nearby, calling it fake outrage. Police stepped in quickly, but the clip spread across social media, racking up millions of views and giving cable pundits something to latch onto. Back in Dallas, Jasmine began typing a thank you message, then stopped. Instead, she posted, "Keep it peaceful. Keep it loud. I see you, and I'm not backing down." The tweet racked up 200,000 likes in just half an hour. Inside the West Wing, phones buzzed without pause. A communications aide tried to downplay the unrest, calling them small gatherings, but the line didn't hold. Governors, both red and blue, were calling, asking whether federal observers would be deployed to cities on the list from the executive order. The calls alone signaled trouble. If observers showed up, it proved Jasmine's point. If they didn't, the order looked like a bluff. In a diner in Rapid City, South Dakota, a truck driver named Dean read a news alert scrolling across the mounted TV. White House reviews response after nationwide Crockett rallies. He set his fork down. That's a first, he muttered. That evening, civil rights attorney Wilhelmina Banks appeared on a local Memphis news station to explain the legal stakes. Intimidation only works if you silence the target, she said calmly. Congresswoman Crockett answered with sunlight. And sunlight spreads. The clip trended all night, second only to Jasmine's original live stream. By morning, petitions to suspend the executive order had passed 3 million signatures. The sheer volume startled pollsters. Jasmine scrolled through names until her eyes blurred: clerks from Utah, nurses from Iowa, a librarian in Peoria. People far from the usual protest map. Patrice stepped into her office with a folder packed with interview requests. They all want you, today, tomorrow, yesterday, if possible. Jasmine set her phone down and rubbed her temples. Pick 2. 1 local. 1 national. If we talk everywhere, we speak nowhere. Patrice nodded. Roger that. But inside the White House, the tone had shifted from nervous to frantic. When President Trump entered the Oval Office the next morning, 5 aides were already locked in silent standoff. Phones buzzed on every surface. One screen was frozen on a scene from St. Louis, grandmothers holding signs, teenagers handing out water bottles, a little boy holding a hand-painted poster that read, "Let her speak." Turn that off, Trump snapped, motioning toward the TV. No one moved. He adjusted his tie and sat down, then pointed to Bennett Gorski, his chief strategist, who was visibly sweating despite the air conditioning. Why the hell is this still a story? Gorski cleared his throat. We expected some noise, Mr. President. But the Crockett video, it caught fire. We underestimated her. Trump scoffed. Just another Democrat yelling about racism. That's their brand. She didn't yell, said Karen Stroud, Deputy Communications Director. That's what made it worse. She read the order live. Held up DOJ emails. She was calm. She sounded reasonable. Trump leaned back, narrowing his eyes. Then hit her harder. A pause filled the room. Then Rusk, the DOJ liaison, spoke up. That could backfire. DOJ's already catching heat. There's chatter about an internal review. Someone's leaking. Trump slapped the desk. Find the leak. Already working on it, Gorski muttered. Trump's phone lit up with a news alert. Protests expand after Crockett's live stream. Pressure builds on White House. He swiped it away and looked up, jaw clenched. She's one congresswoman. Why does it feel like we're losing the country to a woman with a damn webcam? No one answered. But privately, the calculus had changed. Republican governors began placing quiet calls, unsure whether to enforce the new voting restrictions. Some avoided press entirely. Senator Arnold Marr of Wyoming issued a vague statement: all Americans have the right to question executive power. The cracks were showing. In a side office, Gorski met with Stroud. We have to pivot, she said. This won't survive another news cycle. And say what? Say the order was about security. Say Crockett misunderstood. Blame it on bad wording. She didn't misread anything. She made it look that way, Stroud said. You saw the live stream. That woman's got courtroom rhythm. You can't shout that down. Trump called for a second press conference. Von Little, his legal advisor, warned against it. Your first remarks are already under fire. A second one will just give them a new soundbite. I want to be clear, Trump snapped. She lied. She made this political. The protests are fake. We'll say that. Dwight Reynolds, the press secretary, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, with respect, maybe we let the heat die down first. I don't let things die down, Trump said. I crush them. He canceled his golf round and ordered an updated dossier on Jasmine Crockett. She's smart, Gorski said. Civil rights attorney. Former Texas House member. No scandal. Some union money. A Twitter spat with a radio host. There's gotta be something, Trump growled. She's not afraid of you, Stroud murmured. He heard her. His eyes narrowed. Then make her afraid. Stroud stood still. Unreadable. In the West Wing kitchen, an aide checked her phone. A new clip had dropped, a teenage girl in New Orleans reading from her grandmother's 1965 voter registration card. Tears in her eyes. They told her she couldn't read, the girl said. So she memorized the Constitution to prove them wrong. And now they want to take us back. That clip was already being edited into Jasmine's video by creators across platforms. One version showed Crockett holding the DOJ emails while the girl's voice played. That mashup spread faster than anything else, shared by celebrities. Preachers, even a retired federal judge. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat in her kitchen, stirring tea she wasn't drinking. She wasn't smiling. But she wasn't shaken either. Her phone buzzed, another call from a national network that rarely invited her on. She picked it up. Let's talk, she said into the voicemail. But no fluff. I want 20 minutes. No commercial break. If we do this, we do it real. And it would be real. That interview wouldn't just go viral. You've sparked national protests. You've released internal DOJ emails. But let's get to the heart of it, Jonah said. Why do you think this executive order was written the way it was? Jasmine paused, not for effect, but for precision. Because it's easier to suppress a vote than to change a policy, she said. Shift 5,000 votes in 3 counties, and you don't have to win hearts, you just win margins. She held up a laminated copy of the executive order, covered in highlighter marks. I'm not guessing. I read it. I marked the section that lets polling places be relocated under the excuse of a civil unrest. I marked the memo that labels my public objection as a disruption. They didn't even bother hiding the motive. The camera cut briefly to Jonah's reaction, quiet, still, then returned to Jasmine. It's not about me, she said. It's about who they're really targeting. Communities that show up. Voters who remember being forced to recite the Constitution just to get a ballot. She turned directly to the second camera. This isn't paranoia. This is a pattern. Across the country, people leaned in. The usual distractions, text alerts. Kitchen noise, faded. In Kansas City, a 70-year-old man paused while feeding his dog. He'd never voted for a Democrat before, but something in her voice, calm, grounded, made him stop and listen. In Seattle, a teenage girl FaceTimed her grandmother and whispered, "You need to see this." Jonah continued. Do you fear escalation? That the president might use legal force? If I feared escalation, Jasmine said, tilting her head slightly, I wouldn't have gone live. I wouldn't be here tonight. What do you want to come from all this? She took a breath. 3 things. Suspend the executive order. Launch a bipartisan review of federal election oversight. And remind people that silence doesn't protect anyone, it only makes space for louder threats. Jonah closed his notepad. That was unusual, he said. We reached out to the White House for comment. They declined. Jasmine gave the smallest smile. Of course. After the break, the show aired a short community reel, 3 minutes of footage from protests across the country. But it wasn't the images that made an impact. It was the voices. A teacher from Fresno, my students watched her live stream in homeroom. That's civic education. A postal worker from Maine, I'm white, 65, and this isn't just her fight. A woman from Jackson, Mississippi, I voted next to my mama in '94. If they try to move my polling place, I'll walk 2 hours to get there. By the end of the broadcast, State Line Weekly had recorded its second highest viewer engagement ever. Only their post 9/11 episode had drawn more attention, but the real shift didn't happen on TV, it happened online. That night, Senator Maxine, well, a moderate conservative from Arizona, tweeted, "I may disagree with Representative Crockett on many issues. But jailing dissent is not who we are. I will not support this executive order." It wasn't a flood, but it was the first visible crack. The next morning, Jasmine's inbox was overflowing. Not with media requests, but with stories, hundreds of them. Scanned letters, decades-old voter registration cards, hand-typed PDFs. From people who had never spoken out before. Patrice walked into the office holding a stack of them, clipped together. "These are all from last night." Jasmine picked up the first letter and read it silently. After a moment, she folded it gently and placed it on her desk. "They're not writing to me," she said softly. "They're writing to the next person who'll need this moment." But not everyone was moved. Some saw an opening to strike back, and the smear campaign began. Less than 24 hours after the interview aired, a headline surfaced on a fringe political blog, "Crockett funded by dark money packs tied to extremists." No sources. No citations. Just old donation screenshots, already public, already reported years earlier. It didn't matter. The goal wasn't accuracy. It was volume. Soon, right-wing commentators were quoting the article as fact. A podcast host in Austin called her a professional agitator. A cable pundit from Nashville claimed she was a staged actor in a coordinated play. Social media clips twisted her words, stitched her interview to protest footage from events she never attended in her Dallas office. Jasmine scrolled through it all in silence. "Should we respond?" Patrice asked, arms crossed. Jasmine shook her head. "Not yet. Let them empty the tank." Some attacks moved offline. The word "a traitor" was spray-painted across a billboard in her district. A conservative radio show in Raleigh spent an entire segment demanding her law license be reviewed. A sheriff in Alabama called for a federal investigation into whether she had threatened democracy. Then came the messages to go back to law school. "You're not MLK. You're a fraud. We know where your office is." The last one triggered a call to Capitol Police. Security protocols changed. Staff worked rotating night shifts. Her building stayed lit all night, no shadows. No guessing, but Jasmine never flinched. She answered emails. She reviewed bills. She met with organizers. And she kept going live, not to fight trolls, but to speak plainly. In one clip on her official X account, she looked straight into the lens and said, "If I'm being attacked for reading the law, what does that say about the law? And what does it say about the people attacking me?" That clip hit 4 million views in less than 24 hours. Still, the attacks grew. Influencers picked apart her speaking fees, her legal history, even her clothes. One viral post zoomed in on her earrings from the State Line interview, claiming they were coded extremist symbols. They weren't, they're $18 hoops, Jasmine said when Patrice showed her the post. Only thing extreme about them is the markup. Behind the humor was exhaustion. "You're holding up better than I expected," Patrice said one afternoon. Handing her a thermos of soup. "I'm not doing this for comfort," Jasmine replied. "I'm doing it for clarity. The truth doesn't get tired." That night, a handwritten letter arrived, faded stationery, cursive script. It was from Geneva. I stood there and recited it word for word. They still turned me away. "Don't stop, Jasmine. I see you." Jasmine folded the letter carefully and kept it in her purse. From that day on, she carried it everywhere. The momentum began to shift again, quietly at first. A nonprofit in Milwaukee published a point-by-point breakdown of the online misinformation targeting her. A coalition of independent fact-checkers released a joint report dismantling 5 of the top viral falsehoods. Civil rights attorneys began appearing on TV panels, not just defending her but calling the attacks what they were, coordinated suppression. But the turning point came from an unlikely voice. Senator Charles Brantley of South Dakota, a conservative hardliner, decorated veteran, and a loyal party voice, appeared on a midday broadcast and surprised the country. "I don't agree with Congresswoman Crockett's politics," he said plainly. "But calling for her arrest because she read a federal order aloud? That's not how democracy works. If we start jailing dissent, we don't deserve the flag we salute." The clip ran on repeat for 6 hours. Inside the White House, aides fell silent. Inside Jasmine's office, Patrice let out a low breath. "That's one more than I expected." But the wave wasn't over. It was just beginning. At 6 a.m., Jasmine's phone buzzed. She was already at her desk, hoodie zipped, her hair wrapped, a chipped mug of tea cooling beside her. The message was from an unknown number, Phoenix area code. "For what it's worth, I believe you. You didn't just speak for your district. You spoke for the country. I'll make that clear today." Jasmine stared at it, then handed the phone to Patrice. "Is this who I think it is?" Patrice scrolled and gave a nod. "Senator Maxine Rell, Republican. Arizona. Centrist. Former prosecutor. She's got weight. What's her angle?" "Maybe," Patrice said, "she just listened." A few hours later, the news hit the wires. Rell breaks with party, demands hold on voting order, Associated Press AZ Senator challenges executive threat against Crockett, Reuters we don't jail. People for speaking, CNN cameras were already rolling when Senator Rell stepped up to a podium on the Senate lawn. No crowd. No fanfare. Just her voice in the Arizona sun. "I've read the executive order in full. I've consulted with 3 constitutional scholars. And I've watched both Congresswoman Crockett's live stream and her interview. We don't agree on many issues. But I agree with her here. Voter suppression is un-American. Threatening someone with jail for stating that truth plainly? That's a line we should never cross. I will not support this order in its current form." She stepped away. No questions. That clip aired on every major network within the hour. By midday, more Republican lawmakers gave quiet, carefully worded interviews. "I have concerns about the enforcement mechanism." Senator Paulo Desmond, Nebraska, were not in the business of punishing speech. Congressman Eric Mears, Iowa, even a Fox News panelist, usually immune to nuance, raised an eyebrow and said, "Maybe we should have actually read the order." Inside the West Wing, strategy meetings turned frantic. Bennett Gorski, the president's chief strategist, slammed a printed copy of Rell's remarks on the table. "This isn't a protest anymore. It's a narrative collapse. If we lose one more senator, this order dies. We hold firm," Press Secretary Dwight Reynolds said. "Say the backlash proves the need for order. Say Crockett stoking instability. Gorski snapped. She read from a document, "Dwight. That's what started this." She had a highlighter. At the head of the table, Trump sat silent, jaw tight. "We hold the line," he said at last. "She wants a war. She'll get one. Push back harder." "Mr. President," said Rusk, the DOJ liaison, cautiously. "If you escalate now, we risk a full-blown investigation into internal DOJ conduct." The emails she shared, "There's more. From other staffers." Trump didn't respond. He stared out the window. Behind him, a TV showed footage of protesters outside a Kansas courthouse. He muttered, "Find the leakers." That night, a new article dropped. A journalist from the St. Paul Gazette published a piece based on 2 anonymous federal sources. The article confirmed that the DOJ had flagged Jasmine internally weeks before she went public. One quote stood out, "There was already concern. She challenged the order. Pressure came from above to monitor her social media." That single sentence changed everything. News outlets pounced. Legal analysts compared her treatment to McCarthy-era intimidation. Civil rights groups announced lawsuits. A whistleblower agency reached out to Jasmine. Senator Rell introduced a joint resolution to freeze the executive order pending congressional review. It was unlikely to pass, but that wasn't the point. It made the battle official. That evening, Jasmine walked a few quiet blocks in Oak Cliff, her old neighborhood. No cameras. Just porch lights and cracked sidewalks. A man on a lawn chair called out, "You all right, Miss Crockett?" She smiled. "I'm fine, Mr. Gaines. Just getting some air. You keep pushing. You sound like my sister used to." She must have been a fighter. He nodded. They called her loud. She called herself clear. Jasmine chuckled softly. But just as the resolution gained support, another shoe dropped, from the DOJ itself. They didn't hold a press conference. No cameras. No podium. Just a quiet PDF posted to their website at 11:37 p.m. Eastern. Buried between updates about cybercrime and internal staffing shifts. But the internet doesn't sleep. By midnight, a law professor at Tulane posted a link with 3 words, "This changes everything." The statement was short, barely 6 paragraphs. But one line in the second paragraph said what no one expected: "We acknowledge procedural lapses in the internal handling of communications surrounding the executive order on federal election protocols, and will conduct a formal inquiry into administrative messaging and pressure related to Representative Jasmine Crockett." By morning, it was front-page news: DOJ admits pressure, launches review, Boston Sentinel Crockett vindicated, Detroit Metro Journal White House claims. Unravel, Sacramento Daily, the order wasn't overturned, not yet. But something had cracked. The government had confirmed that something had gone wrong, and that someone had tried to bury it. At 8:04 a.m., Jasmine went live again. No makeup. No flashy set. Just her and a soft green blouse. She didn't gloat. Didn't attack. "You saw it with your own eyes," she said. The truth wasn't loud, but it was steady. She held up the same documents she'd shown days earlier. This is the same order. The same memo. The same evidence. Nothing changed, except that enough of you paid attention. She paused, her voice firm now. We are not props. We are not pawns. We are citizens. And the Constitution wasn't written for display. It was written for moments exactly like this. Then she went silent. 5 full seconds. Across the country, screens lit up with reactions. Teachers played the clip in civics classes. Ministers quoted Jasmine in Sunday sermons. In Des Moines, a group of high school students reenacted her speech for a youth film contest. Cable news scrambled to catch up. Even the Frontline Ledger, a conservative outlet known for its biting editorials, ran a headline that read, "When the Government Blinks, Jasmine Crockett and the Power of Relentless Clarity." Inside the White House, frustration gave way to chaos. Gorski paced the hallway, barking into his phone, "Damage control, now. Shift the narrative. Pivot to the economy, the border, anything but Crockett." In the press room, Reynolds scribbled statements while the president sat in silence. No one dared mention Senator Rell's resolution, which was gaining ground fast. By noon, 5 more lawmakers had signed on, including 2 swing state senators. The administration desperately needed. Worse still, DOJ whistleblowers had begun speaking with independent watchdogs. A formal congressional oversight hearing was now scheduled. And Jasmine? She wasn't retreating. She was growing stronger. That afternoon, she hosted a local town hall in Dallas. No media. No fanfare. Just folding chairs, bottled water, and neighborhood volunteers running the mic. A man in his 60s stood up. Scuffed construction boots. Weathered hands. "I ain't voted in 15 years, he said. Figured nothing I do matters." But you made me feel like maybe it does. Jasmine met his gaze. It does, she said. It always has. They just made it easy to forget. Then an 11-year-old girl stepped forward. Her voice trembled. My dad said we're gonna go vote together next time. It'll be my first time watching. Jasmine knelt beside her. That's your right. Protect it with everything you've got. The next morning, the resolution to freeze the executive order reached the Senate floor. Most expected it to fail. It didn't. It passed, 51 to 49. The chamber was silent as the tally was read. Senator Rell stood, nodded once, and walked out. When reporters chased her for a quote, she gave just 5 words: constitutional silence is still speech. Outside, behind barricades in the cold, people listened on their phones. A cheer rang out. Someone clapped. A man raised his fist, not in protest, but in relief. Far away, in a kitchen in Columbus, Ohio, a woman sat with her 2 sons. Breakfast. Untouched. Phones off. You know who Crockett is? She asked. The younger boy nodded. Yeah. She's the one who told the president no. She smiled. She's the one who showed the country how. But Jasmine wasn't done. Her next move wasn't about resistance, it was about rebuilding. An email arrived. Just 1 sentence: are you interested in drafting a bipartisan framework for election reform? It came from Senator Rell's office, less than 48 hours after the executive order was frozen. Jasmine read it twice before calling Patrice into her office. They're not bluffing, she said, tapping the screen. This isn't a stunt. And if it is? Patrice asked. Then let them find out. I know how to write law better than they do. The next day, Jasmine flew to Washington. Behind closed doors in a conference room at the Dirksen Senate Office Building, she met with Rell and 2 other senators, 1 Democrat from Oregon, 1 Republican from Pennsylvania. No press. No handlers. Just legal pads, water pitchers, and 4 lawmakers with something to build. Jasmine listened more than she spoke. But when she did, she didn't pull punches. We're not here to tweak the margins, she said. If we're going to fix something, it needs to be worth fixing. They started with small steps: national early voting standards, clearer rules for polling relocations, transparency in redistricting. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. 2 weeks later, the framework was done. The Voter Integrity and Accessibility Framework, a 36-page bipartisan proposal designed to make future executive orders on elections subject to legislative review. The media expected a headline. Instead, Jasmine logged into Zoom. She met with high school civic students from 5 states. She read sections of the bill aloud. Then she answered questions, one by one. Why didn't you sue the president? Because I wasn't after a courtroom win. I wanted the country to learn something. What if the bill fails? Then the next one won't. And it'll be stronger because we tried. What's next? More listening. Less talking. Politics got loud because we stopped paying attention to people who whisper. Back home, things began to shift. Voter registration surged. Local shops hung signs that read "Ask me about my ballot plan." Churches hosted open discussions where first-time voters asked, for the first time, how their voices could count. And Jasmine kept showing up. Grocery stores. High school gyms. Barbershops. She shook hands, but not for cameras. When someone asked her how she won, she laughed. This isn't winning, she said. This is maintenance. In a quiet corner of the University of Wisconsin Law School, a professor used her live stream as a case study. He played the clip of her reading the executive order, line by line. His students analyzed each clause, each pause. She wasn't dramatic, one student said. She was just clear. That's why it worked, the professor replied. That's the power of knowing what you're up against, and remembering your audience isn't enemies. It's neighbors. Months later, as the bill gained traction and hearings were scheduled, Jasmine stood outside her old elementary school in Dallas. It was career day. Kids sat cross-legged on the cafeteria floor, fidgeting with name tags and paper badges. A boy in the front asked, "Are you famous now?" Jasmine smiled, crouching to meet his eyes. "No," she said. "I just didn't let people lie in peace." Before she left, she handed each student a pocket-sized constitution. Inside the front cover, she'd written the same message: "This belongs to you. Read it loud. Keep it close." That evening, back in her office, Patrice asked, "What happens if the bill doesn't pass?" Jasmine leaned back, eyes tired but steady. "Then we write another one. And another. Until the ground gets tired of shifting beneath us." She paused. "I didn't come here to be a headline. I came to make sure the next girl doesn't have to live stream her defense just to stay in office." And just like that, the story, one that began with a threat and grew into a reckoning, settled into something deeper. Jasmine Crockett hadn't just survived. She'd carved out a path forward. Not for herself, for everyone watching. If this story made you think, if it reminded you why your voice matters, share it. Because silence protects no one.